Ladies and gentlemen, please rise. And now to honor America, please join in the singing of our national anthem. Representing the three-time Stanley Cup champion New Jersey Devils, Arlette.
I feel like I'm at a game. Oh my gosh. Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the
Happy Devils Sunday. Did I do that in my low-tone voice today, Shorts Guy?
Yes, Sam, your very seductive low-tone voice. Well done.
My very seductive low-tone voice on the Let's Go Devils podcast. Hello, everybody. This is the Let's Go Devils podcast, Season 2, Episode 18. I am your host, Sam. I am my low voice, Woo, here with Shorts Guy. Shorts Guy, it's been a while. It's been a while since you've been on a Sunday podcast.
I know, it's been forever ago. You know, coaching high school hockey, you know, it doesn't give me a ton of free time during the winter months. So, and, you know, Sundays just happen to, just haven't worked out recently. So I'm glad to be back. I'm glad to be here.
Oh, yeah. And also we want to welcome everybody on the Facebook Live, on Twitter Periscope, on YouTube Live. We're on Twitch. We're on letsgodevils.com. We are everywhere. And you're probably wondering why I'm talking in a low voice, because I am not in the bunker studios of the Let's Go Devils podcast tonight. So I got to keep it down. But you can still hear me, right? You can still hear me talking, but I just got to keep it down today.
Yeah, I can hear you, Sam. But you know what? Because you're talking low, I want to talk low, which I don't have to.
You don't have to. I mean, I can still. I could still play. I could still play the, you know, the sound bites or whatever. But we've told this story before. Right now, I'm in a remote location, and the person downstairs has to go to work tomorrow. I mean, she actually has to go to work on New Year's Eve. On New Year's Eve on a Monday, and I got to keep it down because she likes to get to bed by 10. So I can't stop around.
There's an hour before 10 o'clock. We're at 9:05. She has the neighbor's got an hour to sleep.
I know. I mean, the Devils are on a 2-game winning streak. Mackenzie Blackwood is on fire, and I want to be jumping around. You know that song, "Jump Around, Jump Around." Like I want to be jumping around and yelling and screaming and all that. So I'm going to have all the the Devils fans on our Facebook Live and Twitter Periscope and all of them that do all the yelling for me and commenting and all that. We've already got some comments coming in through our Facebook Live, and I just want to say hello to everybody. Beer Baron is getting a day off today. Very well deserved day off. I mean, he had a nice streak going with the podcast of attending pretty much every Sunday podcast. I think
this may be the first he's missed, if I'm thinking correctly.
Yeah, I think so.
Very rare.
So.
Maybe over the summer, but that was about it.
Yeah. So, we've got a big podcast today. Episode 18 is going to feature Nick Villano of FanSided, Pucks and Pitchforks blog. He will be on. We're going to do something new. We're going to announce it when he comes on. We're going to do something new called State of the Fan. What Devils fans are saying. What are they talking about online? We are going to take the temperature in the room, how they feel about, in this case, Mackenzie Blackwood. Is he the real deal? I've seen all the Photoshops on all the Facebook groups. I go to Devils message boards. People love him. They're already making comparisons of Marty Brodeur, the MB30, MB29.
Yeah, we got to slow down. We
definitely have to slow down. So we're definitely going to talk to Nick about that. We're going to also talk to Nick about Andy Green and Blake Coleman and other topics, around the league. It's going to be a great podcast. And also, before we go any further, we'd like to thank Bruce Driver last Thursday night at Tavern on the Rocks. I mean, he was so awesome. I was expecting somebody that was, typical Bruce Driver, classy, as he always was, quiet, maybe a little reserved. Boy, did he open up to us.
Oh, totally he did.
Last Thursday. I mean, he was hilarious. He was absolutely hilarious, right?
And he was more than willing to jump on in between periods, whenever we did. He had no issue with jumping on with us, which was fantastic. We kind of went into that night. We knew we were going to do a pregame podcast, but in between periods, that really wasn't on the plan sheet, but it worked out really well. The fact that he was willing to do it with us was awesome.
Well, I think what was really cool was I think he really wanted to, that situation about him leaving the Devils for the Rangers, and he told that story. Why he did it. It wasn't because of the money. It was because of keeping his family in New Jersey to do that, because of the no trade clause back mid-90s, the collective bargaining agreement about players having that security. He wanted that security, and that's totally understandable. But to make a statement, just say and put that T-shirt on with pride, the Rangers suck T-shirt. That was awesome.
Oh, that was awesome.
That was so awesome. So cool. I mean, I know Rob Klobosis was taking selfies like that, right?
Yeah.
And I actually got a picture of that. I should post that online after the podcast. But yeah, Gary writes, the video was sideways though. Gary, let me tell you, let's tell the audience about the technical difficulties we had. No matter how much you rehearse, and there's a lot of moving parts behind this podcast. There's not only do we do audio, we do live audio, but we do live video, and we're on location, right? Let me tell you guys what happened that night. Around 4:00, everything was working perfectly. By 5:00, this podcast was going on at 6. All hell broke loose. Why? The way we do this podcast, we were actually affected by that CenturyLink global outage, because as you can imagine, doing this podcast, we run on servers, we run on cloud. All of that was down. It was a catastrophic failure on the telco's part, and we did our best. Now, the video was always sideways, though, Gary. Well, yeah, you made a great observation. But again, we were having so many technical issues. We were lucky to even be live streaming, and with all that, I mean, can you imagine an entire network that you rely on is completely down? Forget about like your internet. You can back it up with cellular data or whatever, but your entire cloud system is gone. It's not even available.
We were, we were questioning whether or not it was going to go off the ground, moments into it, or moments leading up to it. It was crazy. We were just trying to figure it out, but we got to figure it out. We got online. That's the best part, and that's what we wanted to do.
And that's what we do here at the Let's Go Devils podcast. I mean, I almost made the executive decision to leave the venue to get some support to get us on air. But instead we figured, you know what the heck? Everything's messing up. We did it anyway.
Which in the long run, I guess it really wouldn't have made a difference when you got there because it was a global outage. It really wasn't anything back in HQ.
Yeah. And look, we made it up. Okay. There was a story in New York City when the Blue Jackets or the BJs were playing the New York Rangers that night, and the Rangers actually had the lead but blew it. And then, coincidentally, there was this implosion of a transformer, they say. I think that's hashtag fake news. I think it was the Rangers power play imploding. I think it had something to do with Bruce Driver giving us, the good luck, the good juju, at our live event. He's 1-0-0. When he is attending our live event. That's what happened. Okay. You heard it straight from the horse's mouth. Me, Sam Wu. That is what happened. And I have a lot of proof on that, and you don't have to question. And by the way, Gary says you are great guys. Okay. So we don't have to explain the debacle of that.
Well, we did anyway. We were talking about going to explain it anyway. And Gary, thank you for tilting your head. Hopefully you didn't have a neck cramp the next day for tilting your head while you watch us banter on. At times, what felt like about nothing, but it was still a good time.
Yep,
so much fun.
Also, we want to welcome in Rich Kenny, that's joining into the Let's Go Devils podcast, Facebook group. Terrence Brown, we got to meet him at the event, right? We got to meet him at the event, and he got to win some stuff. He got to win some stuff, and you know what? He was so cool that I gave him. You're supposed to win the Rangers suck confetti. I just was like, here, Terrence, here's some contraband. Go knock yourself out, right?
Everyone loves it.
Yeah. So Billy Joe writes, I'm liking Blackwood. He is using his size, frame to perfection so far. Pucks are just hitting him. Hope he can sustain. Yes, I'm trying to save all my, all my ammunition when Nick Villano comes on, which is he should be coming on in the next couple minutes. So
very shortly, yeah.
Yeah, very shortly. But yeah, Shorts guy, I don't know how we're going to do this transition, but maybe I'll try to get him on the phone. Yeah,
yes,
I don't know.
On the phone.
Yeah, have the phone right here as I'm talking to you.
Yeah, it gives people an insight into the world of the Let's Go podcast. But I mean, I'm really happy with Blackwood as well. I don't want people to get super high on him yet. He's played a few good games, which is awesome. And I want to see the kid develop. It's always a great situation to have multiple goalies that are good, which we seem to have a glut of good goalies. And as long as, I don't know, we still have yet to see how long Snyder's going to be out, unless I miss something there. But having multiple good goalies is always awesome for your team because that's someone you can rely on. But we're finally got, over the last 2 games, solid goaltending efforts, solid defensive efforts, and solid offensive efforts, which we've gotten 1 or 2, but never all 3 together. It generally was only one of the 3 that we were getting, which were causing us to really blow games. However, having all 3 of those parts of the game working for the last 2 games, I kind of joked, I'm sure you remember, Sam, when we got on the podcast on Thursday, I kind of joked that, the Devils didn't lose in 3 days because they didn't play anything. But, here they are 2 games in after the break, and they've looked fantastic, beating the Bruins, beating the Canes, whatever. Terrence, you think he's better than Snyder? I mean, right now with the way Snyder's playing, yeah, you can definitely say he's better than Snyder because Snyder's just not. His confidence is gone.
Let me interrupt
Injuries
you here.
and his confidence is gone.
I honestly think that an empty net goal is better than Snyder at this point.
I feel for the guy though. I honestly feel for Snyder because I've been there in net. I mean, obviously, I'm not an NHL caliber goalie because then I wouldn't be here right now. I'd be somewhere on on the ice, hopefully. However,
would you come onto our podcast if you were an NHL caliber goalie?
Absolutely, Sam. Absolutely.
Okay. All right.
But I can just tell you, just from playing the position alone, like when your confidence is gone and it's shot, forget it. It can take a while to get it back, especially if the team in front of you is playing like crap as well. It's like a double whammy. So, I do want to, I really do want to see how well Blackwood can progress. Because we do have to find a solid successor to Marty. I mean, every one of those teams that are consistent have a consistent goalie, and we haven't quite found that since losing Marty yet. And that's what I'm hoping we're finding. We all thought it was going to be Snyder, and he played well, and then the Devils went on this multi-year slide. Then everyone was saying Kincaid was the guy. Well, Kincaid hasn't proven that he is the guy that we can really counted on for everything. So now we have Blackwood, but I want to say with Blackwood playing as well as he did in the last two games, the Devils fans are also looking for anything and anyone to do well consistently because there hasn't been any of that. Did you say that, Sam?
Yeah. Sorry, Shorts guy. I messed up. I messed up Nick's call. I accidentally hung up on him as we're trying to transition. Here's the camera. As we're trying to transition. So, again, we're having technical difficulties. And Nick, if you are listening, don't take it personally. I just hit the wrong button. This is producer Sam screwing up, and I screw up about 2 or 3 times per podcast, which is my goals against average. So, but hey, no one's perfect. Anyway, so I will go back to your screen, and why don't you go solo for about a minute?
All right, sounds good. So, all right, so I'm going to go. So, Terrence, welcome for the podcast shirt. I'm glad you I'm glad you love it. Wear it proudly, man. We make them with pride as well. What is up, Eric? I see you're watching, man. Good to see you. Good to have you here again. So, Terrence, I agree with you. Kincaid's a very good backup, and I know everyone's been talking about, he's the new guy. He's not proven that he's that solid starter yet. So that's just what we need. However, we do need to get our offense and our defense continuing to roll. Otherwise, you can have fantastic goaltending efforts, which we've had. If the offense isn't scoring and the defense isn't helping out, they're the goaltenders can only do so much. And if the offense scores and the goaltenders let in, 2 or 3 crap goals, then the offense can only do so much. So, Billy Joe, if you want a podcast shirt, if you go to our Facebook page, you can find a link to our podcast shirt. You can purchase them, and they will be sent out. Obviously, not until midweek this week because with the holiday, post office is going to be a little bit slow. So. But if you want one, go check it out. They're $20 in our web store. Sam, I see you're back.
Well, wait a second. Post offices are slow? Are you kidding me?
This time of year. Actually, you want to know what? One of the more reliable methods of getting anything for Christmas was USPS seemed to be one of the most reliable and fastest. Believe it or not, Sam.
Really?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
But do you know who's reliable and fast?
Who, Sam?
Oh, our next guest. From Pucks and Pitchforks blog. Great guy. I've been talking to him a little bit more recently. His Devils knowledge is impeccable. We have Nick Villano of the Pucks and Pitchforks blog on the line. Nick, how you doing, man? It's been a while.
It has been a while. I thought I was on a different podcast. I didn't know I had to do research for the holiday shopping podcast. I would have helped my knowledge a little bit.
That's just something I had to throw in there, Nick. It's Shorts guy, by the way.
Hey, Shorts guy.
So Nick, I guess the burning question today is, is Mackenzie Blackwood the real deal? And we've got a lot of opinions from fans, myself and Shorts Guy, but we want to hear from you first. Is he the real deal?
I mean, what do you mean real deal? I mean, he's not the next starting goalie of the New Jersey Devils. He might not even be the starting goalie on tomorrow for the New Jersey Devils. I don't foresee the Devils making a drastic move by moving towards Mackenzie Blackwood even this season, unless he continues what he's doing right now, and that's literally impossible. I mean, we saw the exact same thing across the Betsy Ross Bridge. We see Carter Hart, who is a more highly rated prospect than Mackenzie Blackwood, and he's been getting lit up the past couple of nights after a couple of good starts to start his career. So I think we need to kind of temper expectations a little bit. I think there's a possibility that he could be really good. And, it all started this season because he was pretty bad last season and the season before. But I think we need to calm down. This is still a 22-year-old who showed very little promise up until this season.
Hey, Nick, it's Shorts Guy again. I'm going to have to agree with you. I mean, when you look online and all the Devils fans, commenting, everyone was so high on Kincaid, he's the next starter, this and that. And now Mackenzie Blackwood's played a couple good games. And, everyone's already starting to, throw that out. Oh, is he the next starter? But he's so young. You're right that there's no way they can make him the out and out starter. I mean, our out and out starter is Corey Snyder. He just happens to be, one, injured way too often, and two, going through a real slump that he just can't seem to figure it out and get out of.
I mean, Corey Snyder, by every single advanced and non-advanced stat, is the worst goalie in the NHL, which is upsetting. I think it has a lot to do with a lot of different factors. One possibly being injury, but I think it's mostly has to do with, he was coming back from injury and lost his confidence while coming back from injury because he still has that thing over his head that he hasn't won a game in an entire year. So I don't think you could call him the starter right now. I think you have to call Keith Kincaid the starter just because when you look at the past 12 months of work, it's, Corey Snyder's playing a backups role and Keith Kincaid is playing a starter's role. That being said, I understand what you're saying where, Corey Snyder has, off the top of my head, 4 more years left on his contract, I believe is off the top of my head. I don't have Cap Geek in front of me, but
yeah, I don't have it open either.
He has plenty of years left beyond this season. I'm almost positive he has 4, including this season, at $6 million a year. And that's not the kind of contract that you're just going to get rid of. So you have to go forward thinking, unless you're going to buy him out, which is a possibility but costs a pretty penny. Unless you're going to buy him out, you have to go forward thinking that Corey Snyder is at least part of the conversation. Whether they use some of these early cheap years of Mackenzie Blackwood to burn some of those years of a contract, or maybe you buy out the last 2 years of Corey Snyder's deal, so it's not as big of a hit. But either way, I don't think you can completely, I know some of the fans are like, Corey who, but I don't think we go there yet.
No, especially, the Devil fans are looking for anything and anyone to grasp on that's doing positive right now. But it's, and Blackwood's played well. It would be great. And I would love to see Snyder come back and be the Snyder of old. And it just seems, on top of the injury stuff, just a confidence issue as well. I mean, there were a bunch of posts the other day about it's been a year since he's had a win, which, one of the things, we know the players see all that social media stuff. So it's definitely got to be ragging on him as well. He wants to do better than he's currently playing right now.
And I kind of, so I look into a lot of things and I kind of try to see the read between the lines thing. And this might seem really small, but in my opinion, so they had Kids Day yesterday. And for Kids Day, they had a lot of the players guess the kids' drawing of them. And one of those players was Corey Snyder. They only did 6 of them. And one of those 6 was Corey Snyder. He was injured, but it would have been very easy for them to not post that on social media and to not advertise that and to not, edit him out of these videos, but they didn't, because I still think that they feel he's still a part of this club going forward. Like I said, that might be looking way too into something, but those are the kinds of things that teams do. When teams move on from people, they're not going to put them into promotional pieces like that.
No, not at all. You're absolutely correct. And even if they wanted to move on from him and possibly look to move him, his stock is so low at this point that the Devils are gonna lose out either way if they move him. So they have to keep him in the conversation. Otherwise it's gonna be a loss.
Yeah, I mean, I wrote about earlier this month that the Devils should send him to the AHL because nobody's going to claim that of contract. So he will clear waivers. It'll be fine. Trust me. Especially he's got like a 700-something save percentage in his last couple of games. Like, nobody's like, people are talking about trade Corey. Nobody's going to trade for Corey. They won't take Corey for free. You'd have to pay someone to take Corey.
Yeah.
And when you get to that point, like, it would be like eat half his contract for a 7th-round pick. And at that point, it's actually cheaper to buy him out. So I don't see where a lot of the fans are kind of getting this trade Corey stuff from, because he's got no value, like zero.
Exactly. Sam, I see you're back.
Oh, I'm definitely back. Yeah, I don't think he has trade value right now. And why would you trade him? I mean, at this point, how many more years does he have left on his contract, Nick? Do you know?
I believe it's 3 after this year. Oof. That's $6 million per.
Yeah, I mean, and also keep in mind, aren't the Devils on the lower end of the salary cap as well? Don't they need his contract to be at the floor at this point?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they need it to be at the floor, because right now, last time I checked, I think they have about $14 million in salary cap space. That's after like the Wood contract and a couple others kind of added to that. So I think if they like lost his contract entirely, they'd still hit the floor, but it would be like kind of like barely, and that would kind of throw things off when the trade deadline happens. When you want, if the Devils are indeed completely out of it, when you want to trade the Marcus Johanssons, the Ben Lovejoys, and and possibly the Kincaids, you might not be able to do that, because that's when you start to get under the floor if you lose that $6 million. So I don't think right now it's a problem, but I think the big picture of things, that would become a problem.
Well, Gary in the Facebook Live group asks, how do we get his confidence back? AHL? What do you think, Nick?
Well, I mentioned this a second ago. I think you send him to the AHL. He's going to pass through waivers. He's going to go against lesser competition. He's going to accidentally put together a shutout night, because he still has those instincts. He just has to get his confidence and the skill to catch up with his instincts. We saw in the last Carolina game, like, he could put together a stellar performance still. He has to get a combination of luck and just kind of getting his mind in the game. And I think if you send him to Binghamton, let him play a little bit, you don't have a Mackenzie Blackwood there anymore where he's going to push somebody who's young and developing back. Right there they have Cam Johnson, who I was very high on, but I think needs to go to the ECHL. And you have Evan Cormier, who's on a PTO. He's the 4th-round pick from 2 years ago. And then you have Eddie Lack. So Eddie Lack's going to return. You just go there. We know that Eddie Lack is very good to have in that goalie room, and he roots for the guys on his team. So when Eddie Lack returns, you send Corey Schneider to the AHL. They kind of work with each other. They cheer each other on. They're both former Canucks. They have a lot in common. I'm sure when Eddie Lack was coming up in the system, I believe that they were in the system at the same time. Don't quote me on that, but it's possible. So they might have, acquaintanceship from back then. I think that's how you do it. He has to spend the rest of the year in the AHL if you're going to go forward with Mackenzie Blackwood and keep him on the NHL roster. I think that's the only way you could do it for the future. You burn the $4 million you have that he's going to cost for the rest of the year, and that's all you got to do.
Now, Mackenzie Blackwood, we had last podcast, we had College calling in, and we had a Binghamton fan. He's not having a great season this year in the AHL. Suddenly he's, brought into in the NHL. Very impressive so far. I mean, how did this happen? I mean, I looked at his goals against average. It's like in the threes, if I'm not mistaken. How did this all happen? Is the AHL team that bad defensively, or is it just, is he getting lucky? I mean, he's facing 40 shots per game, up with the Devils. How did that happen?
So I hate to disagree with your fans, but I'm going to disagree with your fans because I've followed Mackenzie Blackwood just from, paying attention to a lot of Devils, Binghamton. I try to at least get to the highlights to all the AHL Devils games they put up. And I know you don't get the full story in highlights, but he makes saves that other goalies just can't make. And he's been doing it all season. And these are saves that, like, last year he would flop towards the puck and miss it, and it would go in. This year he's making calculated moves, which put him in a better position. Like, he made a save, I think it was his last game in the AHL, where he literally dove across the crease and caught it with his glove. Like, he's making these kind of crazy saves. And yes, Sam, the Devils' AHL defense is that bad. There's Josh Jacobs, and I don't know what else. Like, there's not much on that defense, and they leave the goalies out to dry a lot. And, it obviously hurts them, now. But, I mean, like, when you think about the Devils' defensive prospects, they're not here. There's Ty Smith in the WHL, and there's, is he in the OHL? He's playing for the Spits, or what, where he is. And then there's Riley Walsh, who's playing for Harvard. Those are the two best defensive prospects, and they're not in the AHL. And the guys who are in the AHL, they're not coming to the Devils anytime soon. So it's not a good defense.
So that means Mackenzie Blackwood was all prepared to face, 35 plus shots a game when he came up to the Devils then.
I mean, he didn't have a good. He still doesn't have a good defense. He's got an NHL defense. I actually think, looking at the shots, there was about, I'd say 4 that I think Kincaid would have a chance to miss. The Devils' defense actually played a good game. It's just Carolina was just peppering shots and hoping that something slipped through, and I think that was the strategy because there was a rookie goalie in net. There weren't the most high-quality shots, and I think Boston had the same mindset. Just throw it at the goalie, throw it at the goalie, throw it at the goalie. Yeah. Hope that something trickles through because there wasn't a lot. Like, when you should look at the shot chart, the Devils shot chart is literally all underneath, right in front of McElhaney, and then the Hurricanes shot chart makes like a square. So they were taking shots from all over the ice, but a lot of them, like when you take an equal amount of shots from all the ice, most of them are at bad angles.
Mm-hmm. Well, that, and they may also not have had a lot of game tape on this kid to know exactly where they were supposed to go on him. So, that would make sense to be, firing everywhere like that too.
Yeah, no, I agree.
I do want to switch because I'll talk about goaltending all night long, but I do want to switch. I was reading your a couple of your last blog posts, and I want to talk about the situation with the Stars, and you're pretty high on Shiro calling up the Stars and seeing what we can take away from them. I didn't even hear about any of this stuff with the Stars. Maybe you can fill me in a little bit on the backstory, and then tell the rest of our listeners what you're thinking the Devils should do.
All right. So the backstory is basically the CEO of the Stars, Jim something. I can't think of it off the top of my head.
Okay.
CEO Jim told them, basically told an athletic reporter on the record that that Jamie Benn and Tyler Seguin are blankety blank horse blank. I'll let you guys I'll let your imagination fill in the blanks, but I'll let you know that the blanks weren't nice words.
Okay.
So when this came out, and it was funny because it was kind of like buried strategically in the Athletic article.
Mm-hmm.
So it took like a couple hours for it to come out where it was like, wait, he said what? And then you start seeing like the graphics coming up with the blankety blank blank blank. And so it's crazy because it's now the biggest story in hockey. And it was funny because everybody's joke was, all year the Ottawa Senators are working to be the worst management team in the league, and then here come the Dallas Stars right at the end to mess it all up. So basically, the CEO of the team, who, by the way, Tyler Seguin and Jamie Benn both said have not spoken to them once this year, went on the record to a reporter knowing he was going to print it and curse them out. So not great. It's the equivalent of if Ray Sharo went out and told, the Bergen Record that he thought that Nico and Taylor Hall were pieces of you-know-what because of how the season's gone. And, organizations shouldn't work like that. And players don't want to work for those organizations. So I figured we could build off the emotion of the situation, kind of like how the San Jose Sharks and the Florida Panthers built off the emotion of the Mike Hoffman situation in Ottawa. And you go there, say, hey, your guys aren't happy anymore. You're paying them $9.5 million a year. They might not want to be there anymore, but pen's already the paper. So why don't we make a deal here? I think the fact that they're making that much money and the front office is clearly not happy with them, maybe you could get something done. It won't cost you all of the prospects because of their contract status. And, you can possibly pair together Taylor Hall and Tyler Seguin, who are two who became friends when they were drafted together.
Yeah, that's the pairing that you were talking about more so in your blog post than the possibility of Jamie Benn. You think Tyler Seguin is definitely the better man to go with, especially because of that connection there. And I think you proposed a first line of Hall, Seguin, and Palmieri, which I think would be a killer first line to have for us.
I mean, the Devils' biggest problem now and moving forward is QC. QC is a black hole. You want to? Is it Pavel Zacha? No. Is it Mikey McLeod? No. Is it John Quenville? No. He's a winger now. Who are you going to put in that spot? There's nobody. Yeah. There's absolutely nobody in this organization that you could put in that 2C spot. So you have to find it outside the organization. And what you can do is get a 1C and move your really, really, really good 1C down to make him a great 2C, and then you have a great 1C and a great 2C.
I'd be all for that trade, and I'd be all for anything to help the Devils get better at this point. Bring in more scoring, I just want to see the Devils improve. I can't even put it into words. And then you were also talking about in another article that you were pretty pleased with how Andy Green's been transitioning back to being a better defenseman too.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely been a recent proponent. He was terrible in October and November, bottom of the league for guys getting that many minutes. And I wasn't shy about saying when he was that bad, he was making mistakes all over the ice that somebody of his age shouldn't. It's one thing if your speed slows you down and puts you in a position, but it was his decision making that was putting the Devils in bad positions. So, he was not playing like a captain should. It was just it was beyond the fact that he was old. It was now he was mentally not making the right moves. So I don't know what happened. I can't pinpoint the time where things changed, but it's been at least 2 weeks where Andy Green's on the ice, and I think that he's going to make the right play. He's doing things much better on the penalty kill, and the penalty kill has been phenomenal this month. He's doing things much better paired with who they keep changing his line mate too, and he's been good with whoever they give him to, whether it's Tim Thierston, whether it's Will Butcher, whether I think he played a couple games with Santini. He's playing well with whoever they give him to, and his offensive numbers have been much better. You were saying that too. He had 5 points in October and November combined, and he has 6 points in December, including his first 2 goals of the season. And say what you want about that last one being an empty net goal. Remember last year, it's important for the Devils to get empty net goals so they don't blow these leads at the end of games.
Which they were so good at doing. They were just awful in the last 5 minutes. But, yeah, getting those empty net goals just is going to secure that game for us, which is what we absolutely need. I'm happy to see Andy Green, doing better. I know we were talking earlier in the season on this podcast, like he was just playing so awfully, like, should he give up the captaincy or not? It was just nothing that was pretty, and it was something needed to change. And he's like you said, I can't even pinpoint too. All of a sudden, it's like, whoa, who's this guy? And you were correct there too. And he's not going to get any of that speed back. That's speed is kind of a that's really a non-starter. You can't even get that back. But his decision making has definitely been so much better.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think Green is actually an asset to have on the ice over, a couple other guys that they have. So, if he keeps that up, this defense isn't terrible if he's at least average. If he's average and you can, take away the affinity of Ben Lovejoy and switch him for either, I want to switch him for Yakovlev and give him a real shot to add some offense to this team. But, if you could switch out Lovejoy, who's been making mistakes lately, with one of the guys that have been sitting in Mueller and Yakovlev, I think this is an average defense, which we haven't had in a couple of years.
Yeah. So, Nick, what do you think? What do you think the state of the Devils fan is currently, as far as what Devils fans are looking at? What they're thinking, what they're believing. What are your thoughts on the state of being a Devils fan?
The state of the Devils fan right now is desperate. There's half the fan base wants to quit on the season and go after Jack Hughes or Kakko. The other half wants to make a run for it and is bringing up the Panthers and the Flyers of last year. But they just want something to happen. They either want the Devils to trade everybody and go full tank, or they want them to trade for everybody and go for the playoffs this season. And I think people just need to kind of stay the course. If this season goes to heck and the Devils are towards the bottom of the standings, they get a nice little draft pick. Some of the young guys get the experience they need, and it'll help them in the next year. And when you look at players like Miles Wood and Blake Coleman, that 2016-17 season really helped them develop the next year, which helped them push to the playoffs. And players like Quenville and maybe Studenek and Cini and those types of players, and Joey Anderson when he comes back, maybe the same thing could happen to them, where this season could help them become true contenders next season.
To see them be true contenders next season would be fantastic, and I would definitely agree with you that the Devils fans are desperate, which is why every time we have a goalie that plays somewhat well, they're willing to crown them like the next goalie, which definitely is coming. That's coming from that desperation too.
If you and I'll have to wrap this up in a minute, but if you remember last year, Eddie Lack had an amazing performance against the Tampa Bay Lightning, where the Devils won 4-3. It was the game where Miles Wood exploded somebody's face mask, but people were calling for Eddie Lack to be the starter after that game, and clearly that would be a bad idea. So you're right. We're just desperate for a goalie. So anybody who puts together any good performance, we're immediately on the bandwagon.
And it was going to be so hard to be any goalie coming into this franchise after Brodeur. It was just that was the long and short of it. To be that next goalie was going to be tougher the toughest job in the league.
Yeah, it was definitely tough for Corey.
Hey, Nick, before we let you go, you got any good plans for New Year's Eve tomorrow?
Unfortunately, no. I'll be working. I'll be bringing you. I'll be bringing the local folks of the news.
Okay.
As long as you go home and you turn on the television and there's programming on, I will be working.
Okay. All right, man. Well, thank you for coming on, Nick. We'll have you on maybe next week. Okay.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for having me, guys. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, Nick.
All right. Thanks. That is Nick Villano of Pucks and Pitchforks telling us the state of the Devils fan. He's so knowledgeable, Shorts guy.
Yeah.
He knows his stuff. And of course, me, I wasn't listening the first 5 minutes of that interview. I was doing a little bit of tech stuff. Remember, we had that little talk, at the beginning of the podcast of tech stuff and why I'm talking that low. But you could shout all you want, Shorts guy. They can't hear it downstairs. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
but
he's definitely knowledgeable. It was great to talk to him, and it was, I definitely agree with a lot of almost everything he has to say, and especially bringing Tyler Seguin into this team would be fantastic. It would
absolutely.
If there's one GM that might be able to pull that off, all right, there's two that would possibly be able to pull that off: Lou Lamoriello and Ray Shero. I think the two of them would be able to pull off that kind of move.
I mean, at this point, you have to take advantage of the situation going on in Dallas. You have to at this point. I mean, it kind of remember when Patrick Waugh, when he was on Montreal Canadiens, back in the mid '90s.
That's such a classic clip.
And out of nowhere, he just goes crazy during a game. Mm-hmm. And checks out, and everybody knew the writing was on the wall. And the Colorado Avalanche, which just came from Quebec, grabbed him. Made the trade.
You know what? Had Colorado never moved from Quebec to Colorado, that deal, he would never have gone to that franchise. Never in a million years would Montreal have let him go to Quebec. And that was, that was back in the old Montreal Forum where there was no glass behind the players' bench, and he was able to go. That clip, as a young goalie growing up, just watching him go to the, just point at the owner and basically saying, "I'm out of here, trade me," was just fantastic to see, because it wasn't my team. I had no problem watching that train wreck happen.
Oh, I know. I mean, you hate to see it to happen on your team. Could you imagine if that happened with Brodeur in his prime? Just out of nowhere, he just tells Lou, "Trade me. Yeah, I'm not going to play for you anymore."
Awful. But
did
Montreal? Yeah. I know the Avalanche did. Did Montreal retire Waugh's number? I can't remember.
I would imagine that they would have, but I would have to double check. But I mean, how can you not? 2 Stanley Cups in Montreal? I mean, you'd have to retire. Retire his number. I mean, that's just so significant. But there's so many jerseys. I mean, they're like the Yankees of hockey with the amount of championships and jerseys retired.
Seems like everyone in the Facebook group is all about that. That trying to bring in Seguin. So it seems like everyone's on board.
But when you want a Jamie Benn?
Well, one of the points that Nick made in his blog was that Jamie Benn is older. So,
yes.
Tyler. I can't talk anymore. Tyler Seguin, actually, you can get him for a longer amount of time. If you can get him and you can keep him signed. You would have him for a longer period of time, and then you can, if there's a connection with Taylor Hall that just would be worth its weight in gold as well. To one, keep Taylor here, and to give him someone to really play with. Joseph in the fake Facebook group is asking, do you think some players will get moved? I think that's really the $1 million question, because we will know what this team is going to be doing come the trade deadline if we start selling or if we're buying. We'll know if we're going to go for a playoff spot or if we're just going to go for whatever the highest pick we can get at the end of the season is. And,
this is my opinion.
Yeah.
I think the Devils will be sellers no matter what.
You think no matter what, huh?
No matter what. I'm just based on gut instinct on this one, based on what you see with the other organization, Philadelphia 76ers, the way this ownership group runs. It's all about the process. I hate to bring that up again, and sticking with the plan. I don't think Ray Shero is going to do what the Philadelphia Flyers did and fire their GM. Just win now mentality. I think he's going to stockpile. I mean, you heard what Nick's saying. The AHL team, their defense. What defense?
Terrible.
Yeah, you can't win Stanley Cups without a defense, and it's you saw what the Flyers did. I mean, they have so many young defensemen in their system. The Devils, Ty Smith, and he's still young. He's still very young. So you need to stockpile the system. I think they need more young talent, and I just cannot see them making some bold move. Not saying that they can't. Not making a bold move, unless a Tyler Seguin comes up, and they're basically trading nothing for him just to get him out of Dallas.
I'm looking at the standings, and it's definitely getting to that point of looking very dire, being 30, on 35 points, 10 points out of any playoff spot, 10 points out of a wild card spot, 11 points out of the lowest spot in the Metro. So it's definitely starting to get to that point. And, if you think we're going to be a selling team, we'll see when that trade deadline comes up. I really hate to look at it now, only in, not even January. January is here in 2 days or a day, whatever you want to say. To start thinking that to have that mindset this early is kind of it's a real bummer.
Yeah, it's a real bummer, but you know what? Just enjoy the ride, because they're gonna eventually get this, back together, and and it's a full rebuild. I think last year that the Devils took a couple steps, 4 steps forward instead of 2 steps forward. But sometimes you take 4 steps forward, you take 2 steps back, and I think But that's just part of the building process of building a championship team. If you look at Ray's old team, the Pittsburgh Penguins, of course, there was another GM, Craig Patrick, before him, but he was working with the organization. Marc-Andre Fleury, first overall pick, got, the conspiracy theories of 2005 draft when they got Sidney Crosby, and then Evgeny Malkin. And they built it with that core, and of course they drafted Jordan Stahl, and and then they won their first Stanley Cup, and then a maturing Sidney Crosby, and they went back-to-back cups a couple years ago. I think that's what Ray Shero wants to do. I think he wants to, build within and completely make this his team, because for over 20 years, it was Lou Lamoriello's team. Almost 30 years. It was, it was Lou Lamoriello's team, and it's really a complete culture change. It's for a fan, it's a culture shock, because we knew how. I mean, Uncle Lou was almost like running Grandpa's hardware store. You wanted things done, but you didn't want to offend Grandpa.
Highway.
Yeah. It was this whole thing. I mean, he was cool. Remember, just think of all the big changes that's happened under this new ownership and Ray Shero. Number one, there are players that are wearing number 13. One is Nico Hischier.
Yep.
And Mike Camilleri, right? That was a Lou thing out the window. Marty Brodeur is
they're allowed to have facial hair. They were never allowed to have facial hair unless it was the playoffs.
Heck, they're allowed to have Instagram and Twitter.
Oh yeah, social media. What were you going to say about Brodeur?
Well, Brodeur, I'm over the fact they played in St. Louis. To me, it was and I say this often, it was Brodeur going to college. He never went to college. He was always with the Devils. So he went and spent 4 years at, St. Louis, 3 or 4 years. He graduated. Now he's back.
Yeah.
He's back. He's executive vice president of business development.
I had no issue with him going into the front office of somewhere else to cut his teeth instead of coming right into our front office. Because if it doesn't go right, then that's a real big stain on his career. I mean, look what happened when Johnny Mack became our head coach. It didn't work out really well, and he's kind of, they tried bringing him back in a couple of roles since, but it just seems nothing seems to have worked. So I was A-okay with Brodeur going off to another place to make his mistakes in that front office role than doing it here. You know what I mean?
Well, absolutely. And now he's, close to the team. Now, granted, he's on more on the business development end with the ownership group, but still, these are big changes, and fans need to realize these are big changes from top to bottom with this organization. I mean, heck, the goal song changed right away. Even though I disagree with it, it did change.
Yeah.
There was I think somewhere on Facebook there were a couple of goal song suggestions. Again, bring that up. I don't know why, but I know it's Gaslight Anthem, but I never liked that as a goal song. Did you, Shorts Guy? Not to change the topic.
I'm still so partial to the Hey song. I would love to see that come back, but it's been so long since I've been to a game where I've seen them actually score that I really have no real good comment on it right now. It's been a while.
I was playing some music off of my iPhone in the car, and I posted this on my personal Facebook account. Lords of the Underground, Chief Rocka came on. And somebody suggested that be our goal song because they're from Jersey. And I was like, oh. And I remember when Whoop There It Is was our goal song.
No, I do not remember that at all.
Oh, it was mid-90s. It was like, Whoop There It Is. That was... it was pretty funny. It was there for a while. I'm going to ask everybody in the Facebook group, does anybody remember Whoop There It Is was our goal song in the mid-90s? That was actually pretty funny for a while. Yeah. Well, Joe writes, I love Howl by Gaslight Anthem. I hear it a lot at the Devils games. Most people don't know this, but the lead singer, I knew the lead singer way back when, about 15, 20 years ago, Brian Fallon. He's actually, I think he's from Hackettstown. Let's ask Eric, because he's around from that area. Is he from Hackettstown? I think. But
he used
by
to
the
be,
way,
I think it was Fallon. It was in one of my favorite bands from around here, a pop punk band called Lane Meyer, and they kind of joked about. I'm just gonna. I should know this, but it's. I'm just double checking now, and they kind of joked when the Lane Meyer played a reunion show about 6-8 months ago. They're like, "Oh, Fallon's a little busy right now with some other band," just kind of like a like a backhanded joke, amongst all of them. So, it's. I mean, he's local. He's from here, which is really cool. It's just, I don't know. It's. I still like that. Brian Fallon, yeah, he wasn't Lane Meyer. Yep, I was right. Remembered it correctly.
Well, Eric, I have a question for you. Where were the M&Ms at last Thursday event? I thought you were bringing the M&Ms and chocolate. My sugar's kind of low right now. Yeah, we're supposed to have M&Ms and some Mars candy. At the tavern. Yeah, it would have been fantastic. It would have went well with my chicken fingers and pierogies at the Tavern on the Rocks on 9 Wall Street in Rockaway, New Jersey. Oh, it was freaking awesome. It was awesome.
Big shout out to Jeff and Tavern on the Rocks for hosting us once again. Great crowd. Everyone was having a good time. We had sound on for the game, which is always, really awesome to get. But yeah, Tavern on the Rocks. If none of our fans have checked that place out, please check it out. It's definitely an awesome bar. Tell them the Let's Go Devils podcast sent you there. I doubt it'll get you anything, but just tell them we sent you there anyway.
Yeah, when you go to Tavern on the Rocks, you can also ask owner Jeff if you can, see your feet. Check your feet out, you know.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, owner Jeff is great. He's absolutely great. So, well, anyway, I just, this is our last podcast of the year, or is it? We could do one tomorrow, like a New Year's Eve special, but I don't know. I didn't even like think about that.
Yeah, I'm out tomorrow. If you're looking to do a New Year's Eve, the Devils do have a New Year's Eve game tomorrow. New Year's Eve afternoon game, Vancouver at 1. And then we're on that West Coast swing. We're on Dallas, Arizona, Vegas, and Buffalo. Well, I'm sorry, I read a little past Vegas, but Dallas, Arizona, and Vegas going out west. Southwest, I guess, if you want to call it that. Decent times to watch, and it'll be maybe while they're out in Dallas, maybe Shiro can strike up a conversation and say, hey, should we just take Tyler on our plane with us tonight when we go to Arizona? We'll take him out of your hands.
Hey, let me tell you something. Speaking of planes, if you want to buy one of our T-shirts, the proceeds will go to our private jet. You know that private jet we keep on talking about? That private jet.
In weeks.
Can you imagine? I should have photoshopped it. Can you imagine if we had Tyler Sagan and Jamie Benn on our private jet from Dallas to New Jersey, and we had something to do with that trade?
That would be. I would go pick him up if we had the private jet to pick him up with. That's for sure.
One of the biggest trades the Devils ever made was to Dallas. Jason Arnott, Randy McKay, Joe Neuendijk, and Jamie Langenbrunner.
Yeah.
Oh, it was one of the greatest trades. Bull trade. I mean, you break up the A-line, but Lou had to do it. Lou had to do it, and he did. I know,
and it worked.
But, well, who knows? If I'm not doing anything on New Year's Eve, maybe at 11:30, I'll do a podcast. I'll take callers. But I think people would be busy.
Yeah, 11:30, Sam. I think that would be the worst time for you to take callers on New Year's Eve.
Yeah, I'll make some fake backdrop like I'm at like Times Square or something, but really it's my 50-inch screen TV.
Let's Go Devils podcast live on location in Times Square.
Or even better, how about live on location in Newark, New Jersey?
Yeah, because that's the New Year's Eve hotspot, Sam, right there in Newark, New Jersey.
Yeah, beautiful Newark, New Jersey, right? But hey, you never know. And you know what? 2018 was very good for the Let's Go Devils podcast. I mean, we've grown. We're over 1,000 likes on Facebook.
Mm-hmm.
On Twitter, we're starting to pick up some followers. I think around 191. Twitch, we're actually relevant on Twitch because we stream there. We're on YouTube Live. We have our own YouTube channel, Let's Go Devils. It was a pretty big year for us.
Two live events. Two successful live events.
Which, by the way, we'll be back at Mother's Ale House. We're going to announce the dates probably next week, just to give everybody a head start. But let me give you a clue.
2 more live events. It'd be a good time. 2
more. We may pop up somewhere. We may pop up at Reds. We may pop up at PJ Ryan's. Is that what?
Yep, that's that other one that I was out checking out the other day. Yeah, you may see us do a couple pop-up podcasts. That's a couple different live locations before or after a Devils game or both.
Yeah.
Who knows with us?
Yeah, I may do it from my car. Remember we did that Devils Rangers game, post game from the car? Remember how awesome that was?
That was a lot of fun. That was a ton of fun.
That was like one of our greatest podcasts, actually. From the car.
I think it was.
So we may pop up at a location near you. And you know what? Before we end the podcast, there's some inquiry about doing it in Central Jersey. A live event. Yeah, I heard about that. So we're going to work it. But we need to hear from you, the fans. We are the most commented Devils podcast in the history of New Jersey Devils podcasts. We're growing in numbers. We this year has been just an absolute amazing. It's a privilege to do this, every week. We do this because we love it. And Shorts Guy, it was a great year, but 2019 is going to look even better.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I echo that sentiment. It's been a great year, and it's three friends talking about hockey, which the feedback that I've received from, the live event, what made that conversation with Driver so good was just sound like three guys talking about hockey. And that's really all it was. And that's really all this is just three guys talking hockey. And every now and then we have people call in and to add to the conversation, and it's a good time.
Well, the other thing too, I want to address this. Joe writes, don't forget to read everyone's responses on Twitter too live. Let me tell you something, what we're going to be doing, because we're well aware that even YouTube Live, we're actually have a programmer building us, Shorts Guy, myself, Beer Baron, and Scotty, this screen that has all the chat rooms going at once. It is very difficult to do this podcast and read all these comments at once. I mean, it's just Shorts Guy and I tonight. We're a little bit shorthanded with Beer Baron, with his family. I didn't listen the first 5 minutes of the podcast, and I'm asking him the same questions over and over and over like an idiot. These things happen. We're always going to be constantly improving. But just to address your comment, Joe, which we really do appreciate, we're definitely working on it. We're definitely trying to improve on that, and we will definitely like to read those comments on Twitter as well. But for now, there's a lot of moving parts that people don't see behind the scenes. And just like last Thursday when CenturyLink went out, we could have went out, but we worked our way through it. We're going to work our way through it, and we're going to be reading a lot of comments in the future, because we are a comment-driven Devils podcast.
And you know what, Sam? I'm going to cut in because Gary just posted. He said it's many friends talking Devils hockey, which is true. It is many friends, because that's what we consider all of our listeners as our friends, and we all like to talk Devils hockey. So Gary, that's an awesome comment. That's very true. It's a lot. It's many friends talking Devils hockey.
And not only that, we view this podcast as like everybody's joining in. You're just like our online extension of the bar we're sitting in with three guys, and you guys go into the chat room. It's just like coming on in. And you know what it's like going from Facebook to Twitter to Periscope to YouTube Live? I liken that as bar hopping. Hey, if there's nothing going on Facebook Live, let's check out. It's the same live stream, but it's a different crowd, different questions, different animosity. I don't know, but I think as Devils fans, we need to come together. I think that's my New Year's resolution for 2019. I think we all know this, and it's going to be a topic on one of our podcasts about Devils fans. There's a lot of pockets of Devils fans, and that's a whole podcast in itself. But what the Let's Go Devils podcast and what we do, and trust me, it's hard to bite our tongue sometimes, but we try to bring it all together. We're all Devils fans in the end. There's nothing more than that, and that's how we feel, and we want to promote what's right about being a Devils fan.
Yeah, the divisions are stupid, and it needs we need to find a way around those divisions, and we got to bring all the different groups together under one flag, and that is the Devils. And that's the way it should be. Unfortunately, it's not.
Yeah, unfortunately it's not, and I'm sure you've heard the stories, and we're not going to name names on this podcast, but I think our New Year's resolution for 2019 is we got to do a better job of that. We really need to do a better job as a fan base, because, and Gary said, absolutely, we feel it out here. Joe writes, it's awesome to have that new innovation, very exciting. And you know what? We're going to have more live events, because, yes, we do this online thing, but nothing beats going to one of our live events, especially when we've got, great guests and we've got an atmosphere where it's Devils hockey and everybody fits in. Everybody fits in. Except for the Ranger fan that just happens to walk in. Then he gets booed, right?
Yep. That's all part of it. Just that banter between between fans and teams, and you got to expect it if you're a Ranger fan walking into a Devils event.
Absolutely. So, trying to cue in the outro music here. Sorry.
Producer
Yeah,
Sam,
I look at this. Yeah, this is where my screen is. You see where I'm pointing at. That's my screen. Sometimes I'm looking at you on my screen on my monitor.
And I tend to
really,
do the
I
same
should
thing
be
all the time. I know I should be looking at the camera too more often, but you think maybe after a year and a half we'd have this down by now, but no. This is what happens when regular guys are given a microphone and a camera. We still screw it up.
Yeah, but you know what? That's the greatest thing about our podcast is we're not afraid to screw up. We actually like screwing up. We actually make fun of each other screwing up, right?
Oh my gosh, we do. And that's the better part about being at one of our live events is you get to see the banter between us, which only usually happens before and after when we're not on air. But the banter between us when you're live and in person is pretty good too.
You know what? And maybe another feature that we haven't discussed is the discussions we have off air after this podcast are actually incredible. It's just it probably is going to have to be pay-per-view XL. So
we'll set a whatever it is a patron, whatever that account service is, and at the $25 tier you get to hear us before and after the shows.
Well, we would like to thank first off, we would like to thank Nick Villano for coming on. We're going to be doing great things with him in 2019. We're working out some of the details as well, but maybe I could just drop this. Somebody on this podcast is going to be writing for Nick's site. Do you know who that person is?
It's not me. Oh, it's you. It's Sam.
Yes.
Very good.
Yep.
Sam getting more involved in Devils hockey. That's the best way. That's the best thing.
Yeah, I'm going to be definitely trolling the internet. Trust me. And also with the Beer Baron, I hope you're having a great time with your family right now.
Yeah, totally.
I'm looking in the camera. That means you, Beer Baron, your 2 little kids, your wife. Hi, Nikki. Hope you're doing well. I'd like to thank my wife for putting up with my podcast every Sunday, whether I'm in the bunker studio or I'm here. But she wants to keep this podcast 1 hour or less, so I should probably speed it up. Short Sky, I want to thank you.
You blew past that 1 hour.
Yeah. Well, I'll just blame Nick. He just went on and on and on and on. And also, like to thank the fans, all of our guests, Grant Marshall, Bruce Driver, Doc Emmerich this year. Yeah, Doc.
Cangelosi,
Arta Cal, organist Pete, announcer Kevin. We've had a lot of great guests, and it's only going to get better.
Only going to get better is right, Sam.
All right. Well, we'll see you next year in 2019. Let's go, Devils.